Now, you asked about group soul. Yes, it seems that we are all members, and this brings up the topic of soulmates. In group, we are members of a group soul, like peas in a pod, and we recognize in some subconscious way often another soul member, another member in our own group soul, which is why we feel an affinity with some people more than with others, because we have a greater connectedness. We have more affinity, we have more resonance, because we're members of that same group soul. And then that brings up the question of soulmates. Yes, they are all our soulmates, and throughout lifetime after lifetime we will relate to all of these soulmates. So the question often arises about soulmates. Do we have only one soulmate?
No.
No. But some people do, yeah. So through a block of lifetimes, yes. You may have, over a block of lifetimes, 20 lifetimes, you may be relating to that same soulmate. So you think, well, that's my soulmate. But no, you move on. You get it's time to move on and to have other. You lose the passion for each other. You're just like brother and sister. It evolves to a sibling relationship or a family relationship, so that you don't have that lust and passion anymore. So you move on to another soulmate. So and that's like linearly sequential soulmates. Now there are other people who are parallel processors, so they have multiple soulmates simultaneously, which is why there's so much let's say polyamory, because some souls need to be relating to multiple soulmates ongoingly. And then the divorce rate, why is the divorce rate so high? Why does vast majority of man-woman relationships, or love relationships in general, why do most of them break down, whether it's marriage or not? Because there's this drive to move on to other soulmates in our same group soul. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah. Now, one of the great tragedies, of course, is that you're around a soulmate and you don't recognize it or reject it. Why? Because you're not in touch with your own soul. Your own soul would tell you, but you're cut off from your own soul. So how can you recognize another soulmate? And that's a great tragedy, because there are people, particularly young people, they get involved with totally unsuitable non-soulmate partners, and then they wonder, why is it blown up? Why is it so ugly? Why is it so violent and hostile? Because the soul ultimately rejects those who are not our soulmates. So I think one of the greatest contributions for families and for children, we shouldn't be bringing children into the world with parents who are not soulmates. That's my thesis anyway. Now, remember too that we can be male and female in different lifetimes.
Oh, I believe that too.
Sorry.
I'm sure I was a man in a past life. I just wanted to mention, because I'm sure everyone's going to want to know how to reach you. We're with Dr. John Stewart, specializing in medical sciences, neurophysiology, electrical engineering, so much more. Please visit his website. It's www.biophysica.com. That's biophysica.com, or radionics.com. And of course, would love you to visit my website, www.askyourangels.ca. There's a lot of things on there that can help you. We've been talking about yoga. You can go on there and you can go to a YouTube with a yoga instructor, or meditation, or Reiki, or there's just so much there that you can use as a resource to help you. And we'd of course love to hear from you. We also have Twitter. Please follow us on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Angel Talk Show. And I'm going to go back to Dr. John.
Well, thank you, Christine. What should we still cover on reincarnation before we move on to the quantum physics and science part?
There's a couple questions. Repeated patterns. You know, I know someone actually who's actually told me that they've had the same injury in every life, things like that. Are we destined to always perish the same way? that we do in every life. Have you come across that at all?
Oh, very frequently, particularly with suicide. People who have not faced that which they are suiciding about and try to avoid or escape, they have to come back and do it, and it's much worse. It's harder. It's called karma dura. Dura meaning hard. It's hard karma, which hits you like a 2x4, where you're forced into disastrous, painful situations. And then there's a soft karma, where you go about doing things that will raise your vibrational frequency in a more gentle, natural way, like doing good, do good things for others. You and I doing this work here tonight is good karma. It takes an effort, but if we didn't do this, we might maybe erasing some bad karma that we might have to face when you do good things for ourselves and for others and for humanity. So karma is where we have to pay back. Now the other side of karma is dharma, is grace.
We have a quick question online.
Oh, okay.
Question is, how would we know if it's our last lifetime?
How would we know if it's our last lifetime?
I personally, my experience would say that we wouldn't know unless, that's me, but I don't think there's a way to actually know that.
Well, first of all, you wouldn't know that unless you had a connection with your higher self and you were channeling directly, or if you were in a regression session. The other question that is implied by that is there such a thing as a last lifetime? Is there ever a last lifetime? We go back to a spirit realm. This physical life is very temporary and brief, and they're one of many, not only on this planet but on many other planets. So that the question is, where are the extraterrestrials? And we are the extraterrestrials because many humans like us have come from the previous life was on another planet, in another life form, or another humanoid or non-human or animal form. So there probably is no like we'll always be in some form or other, whether it's pure energy or not in any vehicle. Does that answer your question?
I'd kind of like to think there is an end where you just kind of float around heaven and maybe be a guardian angel and help others and not have to keep coming back over and over.
Well, that does happen.
I'm working towards that, but I understand you have to have a clean slate karmically, and that's very tricky.
I had another question come up online. It was, so do we ever decide if we want to be reincarnated, or is it forced?
Oh, do they have well, that was another question I was going to ask. Do we have I believe we have a choice. I think to reach the certain planes in heaven or wherever we think we're going, you have to, it's kind of like school. You have to come back because you're in school. We're here to learn. And the more you come back, the more you learn. And to get to, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to go to university when I'm older, so I have to go through all these grades to get there. How quickly do you want to reach the greater place? You probably have a better way to explain
in fact,
this than me.
Dolores Cannon, whose book I showed, for those who have just come on online, this book by Dolores Cannon and her other books, this is only one of many, describes how this is a good metaphor. It's like a school or a college, and we go through different grades, we learn, and we move on to a higher grade. We leave behind those slower spirit beings who are not at our level, or whether or not they don't want to learn as fast as we do. So do we have a choice, was the question. And I said earlier, there is an avenue of possibilities given to us. So a bunch of choices within that avenue. So yes, we have a choice, and no, we're limited to this range of possibilities. So within that range, we can say, yeah, no, I don't like this particular parents. I think I would rather be with these parents, or I would like to go to university and be a lawyer, or I would like to be so there's a range given to us, but it's a limited range, so we do have some choice.
Well, I have a question on that, because sometimes there's people who say to me, that person who has the big house and the greatest job and the perfect wife, and they seem to have it all. Is that something, like, can we actually, is it kind of like a vacation? You know what, I'm going to go back, but I'd kind of like to just enjoy myself this time. I won't get any further along. I might not get as many lessons learned, but do you think you have that option?
Well, I've done a lot of reading besides physics and engineering and science. I've done a lot of reading on channeled material because I've come to value and respect a lot of this channel material, particularly entities like Ramtha, Lazarus, Cryon, who's got a lot of science. But Lazarus said that we often come into what he calls an R&R lifetime, rest and recreation lifetime, and it seems that we have that choice. Now, be careful there, because there are opposing forces. We do have incumbent upon us is our duty and responsibility to take action in the world. To the teachings of Kabbalah, for example, the greatest sin in Kabbalah is to do nothing. Even if you make a mistake, it's better than doing nothing. So we should all be actively engaged in higher purposes that interact with others, or do things for us, or learning or reading, each of us having our yoga. So we cannot live without yoga of some kind.
Mm-hmm. So even if I have the mansion and all the money and everything's great, then I should say, hey, I don't have to work, so I'm going to take that time and volunteer to help other people, or I'm going to fundraise, or I'm going to give a lot of this money to different charities, or you still have to contribute to the goodness of the world.
It seems that way. In fact, it's often said a great curse is to be wealthy, because you get bored. You have no motivation to do things. In fact, Nikola Tesla said the greatest curse to man is to win $1 million, because it deprives you of the drive and the motivation to take action in the world. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when you take action, you use biofeedback. You see the results, and that feeds back to the higher dimensions, like I mentioned earlier. The higher dimensions, the spiritual entities of which our spirit is one, they feed us, that we feed them. And in science, that's called the morphic fields, which was it's been described well by Rupert Sheldrake from Oxford and Cambridge University, where there are fields in the universe, cosmic fields, that give rise to life, give rise to the order that we see around us. So when you wonder, well, where did life come from? How did evolution change? Was there intelligent design? I have a special interest in intelligent design. Well, Rupert Sheldrake would say yes. There are these formational energy waves which inform and enform and give form to physicality. So, and he calls them the morphic field, because morphos in Greek means form. So that these fields are creating the order that we see around us and our thoughts and behaviors.
Just had a quick question online. Somebody wanted to make sure that this was live. Could we just admit that it's live for them, please?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
We're live.
We're right here.
What's your name? We'll say hi.
Totally unrehearsed. This is totally spontaneous.
Well, we're winging it.
We're winging it. We're winging it. No.
What's their name, Brett? Do we have a name?
RAYT 21.
Rate 21. We're here with Dr. John Stewart.
Raymond.
And Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. Thank you for joining us today. So you were saying about morphic fields?
Yeah, that's an important. Read the book by Rupert Sheldrake, A New Science of Life, when he talks about where the form for DNA, for example, where did DNA come from? Did it suddenly appear? No, it was shaped by these fields that impart form and order into the universe that we see around us. So it's not, see, chaos and randomness, all you get is more randomness. How can you get order out of randomness? So you've got the vibration of randomness superimposed upon which is this subtle formational fields called the morphic fields. So you need both. Yes, you need the randomness of quantum physics, and you need the form to impress upon it. The one interact with the other. Do we have another question? No. So that covers morphic fields. How about DNA? Is DNA the whole answer? And if you listen to and read Rupert Sheldrake, the great biologist, he says no. There's more to DNA than the order that's within DNA. DNA is like a tuner, a radio tuner, receiving these 0-point energy fields and information that formation is formed by information, and these informational fields are all around us. So can we tap into them? Yeah, I think so. If we raise our vibrational frequency, like is advocated in Celestine Prophecy, the Ninth Insight, which I read, when it first came out, and I was very impressed by Celestine Prophecy. Another book I must share with you is What About Miracles? We were going to cover miracles and angels.
Course of Miracles?
Yeah, so this I studied this way back, and I used to run a study group on Course in Miracles, and the whole I would say read particularly the first 50 definitions of a miracle. A miracle is a change in perception, because miracles are happening all the time. Every moment is a miracle that we are breathing, our heart is beating, we are being fed by miraculous energy called morphic energy, Reiki, Ki energy, Chi. It's all feeding us, and that's a miracle, because these miracles are happening. Now that's the ongoing miracle. What about the occasional unusual miraculous event? Like getting a parking space when you didn't expect it.
I have great parking karma.
Oh.
I always get the best spot, and I say to my kids, no, I'm not taking that one, because parking karma, I'm going to get the best spot, and I always do. Yeah,
it quite often works for me too. Remember that these energies are subtle energies. They're not delineated hard and fast. It predisposes the probabilities. Like the butterfly effect. A very small influence, like our intention, can slowly have an effect upon nature and the physical world. So that covers angels and miracles.
I'm going to just intercede something, because I don't want to forget, and it's not really, it's kind of in keeping with this, because to me it was a little miracle. But the other morning I went to Starbucks and I got a breakfast sandwich and a latte, and before I ordered it there was a huge lineup, and all these cars were ahead of me, and along came this woman in her truck, and I was already in line and she had just come, but I looked at her and I was overcome with this sense that she's in a hurry. She has somewhere she has to be. I literally backed up my van out of the lineup and I waved her through. She didn't motion or wave or smile or anything, and I thought, oh well, but I felt good for having done it. But I tell you, when I got up to pay, the girl said, that lady paid for your breakfast, because she said she was in such a big hurry and she really appreciated that you did that. So the reason I'm sharing this, for me, I almost cried. I thought, it's such a small thing, but it was such a big thing for me, that someone would do this for somebody else. And it's kind of like pay it forward. If someone does something nice for you today, go out, do something nice for someone else. It'll cause a ripple effect. If everybody could do this, what a great place the world would be. Exactly.
Sharing love rather than fear. Because where there's fear, there cannot be love, and vice versa. Certainly doing good things for people has a ripple effect. And we talked about the butterfly effect, where one little event can have a rippling effect throughout the whole world or the whole universe. There's also the 100th monkey effect that we should talk about a little bit.
I don't like monkeys.
They can be a lot of fun.
It's since the Planet of the Apes,
Well, just very briefly, what listeners should know about the 100th monkey, where you have a critical mass phenomenon, where you have more and more people doing the same thing. Then all of a sudden you get a breakthrough. And a good example in the last few decades is cigarette smoking. The laws, when I was a young medical student back in Scotland, it was everybody's right to smoke in everybody else's face. You went into a pub and you could hardly breathe for the smoke. Now the transformation there was unimaginable that could ever happen, because people felt it was their birthright, their God-given right to smoke. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that some sanity has prevailed in that, and other things where sanity has prevailed that have given us permission to do things that are quite healthy and natural, particularly with regard to human relationships, marriage, unusual kinds of lifestyles that now we're recognizing are quite healthy and harmless, and people should be allowed to express themselves any way that is not harmful or violates the rights of others.
Mm-hmm. That's a Buddhism thing too, isn't it?
Buddhism, yeah. I've studied Buddhism. I've gone to a lot of, particularly Tibetan Buddhism was my thing. Yeah, I did workshops with Trungpa Rinpoche, one of the famous Tibetan Buddhists. And just talk about Buddhism. Buddhism talks about balance. You don't go to extremes of positivity or negativity, because one is as bad as the other. Extreme negativity, you would call that evil, but extreme positivity is evil too. But somewhere in the middle is balance, and that's Buddhism. And there are many people who are so far on the righteous that they want to inflict their righteousness on others. And no one has the right to limit the growth and expression, the beautiful growth and expression of other people.
I agree.
Now, if you wanted to, we have a board here of topics that we wanted to try and cover. Is there any here that?
Time, space, continuum, and time travel.
Okay, yeah, time. I give lectures twice a month in downtown Toronto, mainly at the university, one of the university buildings, because it's nice and central, and people like the academic atmosphere of having a class in a university environment. But one of the topics I cover is time. Is time an illusion? So it does seem that way. Most physicists will now agree that time is an illusion. And when you think about it, how do we measure time? Your answer would be, a clock. A clock measures time, and that's the definition of time. But it isn't. A clock is not measuring time.
Sun? By the sun?
No. What is a clock measuring? It's measuring movement. Mm-hmm. And there really is no such thing as time. There's movement and there's space. And when you consider the definition of speed, speed is kilometers per hour or miles per hour. So it's speed, S equals miles, we call that x over t, x over t. So do some algebra or simple arithmetic. T equals S over t equals space over velocity. So that, to me, this is just my thinking. I haven't read this in any textbook, but to define time as a ratio of the distance, the gap, versus the speed. So time is a product of movement. So ask yourself, if there was no movement, would there be any time? Time is a concept, is a ratio of distance over velocity or speed. And you need these two. Yeah, velocity is observable and measurable. Distance is observable and measurable. But time isn't. Time is the combination, the ratio of these two other measurable parameters. And then maybe that isn't even true, because even velocity is, if you have two objects moving at the same speed or velocity, relatively there's no difference. You can't measure velocity. So how about acceleration, which is the rate of change of velocity? Some of you who are mathematicians, I'd be interested in having a discussion with you about the mathematical nature of time, and acceleration perhaps is a more, we can measure acceleration more absolutely than we can measure velocity. So now, what about time travel? According to the regression work, and I have a great respect now for the regression work that's come through people like Dolores Cannon and and to mention the others to be only fair, Michael Newton and Brian Weiss, to be fair to these other authors, and and finally one of the early authors, Life Between Life, Dr. Whitten. They have all of their clients or patients are saying similar things as corroboration, verification about past lives. So I have a great respect for that. It's a kind of channeling, because these people are in that theta state. They are tapping into what we might call the Akashic records, which is where all knowledge of the universe, past, present, future possibilities are reside and are stored. And in many, and particularly Dolores Cannon, has transcripts of people who have visited the Akashic records, and there is a keeper of the Akashic records. So these are things you'll read about when you read Dolores Cannon and other authors. Yeah.
I have a book here too that's really great. This is, and I've mentioned it in the past, Echo Bodine. She was a renowned psychic she basically had an out-of-body experience, willed herself to see heaven. And I don't always believe everything I read, but everything I've always envisioned myself that was part of heaven, I was shocked to see was exactly in this book. So I think it's a great read. But basically she talks about different aspects of the soul and dying and in between worlds and everything pretty much we've talked about here. So that's another one. It's called Echoes of the Soul by Echo Bodine.
There are so many topics we could be covering, like the holographic universe, subtle energies, 0 point energy, that there really isn't enough time in one brief evening to cover a lot of these things. But I think it's more important to learn that we have to raise our vibrational frequency. And one of the more important ways is to use light and color therapy. And to that end, I have this I invented this maybe 15 years ago, that activates a quartz crystal and has lights that stimulate the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, which correspond to the third eye. We need to open our third eye, to quote the Hindus. To open our third eye raises our frequency, opens channels of connectedness so that we can start channeling. We should all be channeling.
Yes.
We should all be having the next level of evolution, which is telepathy. Spirit to spirit, mind to mind contact. So this is one of the devices. We put it up here, and for those of you who have trouble meditating, this is another option to meditation, to raising our vibrational frequency through the power of a crystal, activated crystal. And the crystal has to be activated and has to have cut in certain ways that will capture all of the cosmic energies and information of the universe.
So once you use this to open your third eye, will it stay open?
Oh yeah. It'll stay open, but then it'll close again unless you keep it open. It's like any other physiological function or diet. We have to keep a regular diet as part of our nutrition. Our spiritual or psycho-spiritual nutrition is to feed ourselves and each other with loving activities and loving energies. Yeah. And what more loving than color and crystals? That's why crystals are so popular, because handled the right way, they can be very powerful. Just read about it in Dolores Cannon's other book.
We actually had a segment on crystal healing.
Yeah, and then there's a diagram of this particular subject. Philip drew a diagram of how the crystal has to be cut, pyramidal crystal to be cut in order to capture the cosmic energies to run their civilizations.
We have a lot of books down here.
Yeah.
A lot of great resources.
Oh yeah, what about parallel universes? I just saw a book there on my parallel universes. Are they real? Yes, they are. There are multiple parallel universes on the physical plane, on this plane. And there are multiple universes on the higher planes. So vertically and horizontally, there are multiple existences, multiple universes. So I read about it in some of these books. And the
Does
truth.
that mean could I be actually living a life here and living another life, like let's say married somewhere else with kids and a different family on a different plane? Has that ever been
It
documented?
seems, yes, on rare occasions it's been documented. And of course we realize that what we're getting through regression therapists like Dolores Cannon is to some extent a manifestation of who she is in her connection with her own spiritual self. If I'm doing a regression session with someone, I may get a different set of experiences. Different people will be attracted or magnetized to coming to me and to coming to you, because we attract to us those people with whom we are supposed to be engaged with. Now, with many of these regression subjects, you've got a higher entity often speaks through multiple subjects. Like the entity is waiting for the next subject, and the same subject comes through different, the same spirit being comes through different subjects, one after the other. So the human subjects or clients are brought to you so that higher information can be given to you as a gift for your learning, and for you to put it on TV or to write about it, publish it, so that it becomes common knowledge, so that we raise the vibrational frequency of the whole planet, everyone on the planet.
That's what we're trying to do.